Okay, hello and welcome to a uh, pre-recorded lesson for Radio 2. My name is Chris and I will be your lecturer for the hour. Just please note that we're going to be rotating like from week to week. Okay, so one week will be pre-recorded lessons, one week will be live lessons. Just to get that, I would say, clear, you can either email me. The email should be on Call Campus, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. So it's chrisjordan007.cj@gmail.com, or you can just send me a message. I prefer to actually start a group um, on WhatsApp. So 072643. I can actually just summarize them right here, right now. You can actually see this. So let me just say there's my cell number. It's 0726435502, and then email will be again Chris Jordan007.cj@gmail.com. Okay, so you'll have it there, and let's just save it there. Okay, so we're going to do our first lesson, and again, I'll also pre-record the second lesson. We'll load it up as you'll be able to see on Core Campus. And throughout this first week, we just like for example, we should be online right now. There's obviously a little bit of confusion, and in terms of I'm not too sure as to why no one has logged on, but we'll clear that up in the week, and no love lost. Okay, all right. So let's start with our first lesson. So I'm not going to actually play the presentation. I'm just going to go through it to the slides, so you can actually see what's going on. I'm just going to move my beautiful face upwards. Okay. Um, just so that you know that we've got 84 lessons, and we're going to be using the Next Level Radio as well as Beyond Powerful Radio. And then you can also have a look at those BCC, BCC, what am I saying? I'm already confusing legislations here. Okay, so the BRC SA, I've already uploaded also those documents in terms of like seeing the numbers to Call Campus as well as we'll be looking at some extra material as well as in your textbook. So what I want to do with this is I'm going to go through the exercise when we get to the lesson slide, and then you will we will revisit it, should I say, okay, when we do our live lessons. Okay, cool. All right, so we are going to be introducing just as we always do, just the kind of the landscape, understanding it, just a little bit further than what you did in first year, and I want to just kind of get to it, right? Why do we need audience research? So I want to start there and understanding why the BRC, which is, our supplier for stats and data and our listenership, as well as trends and, a whole bunch of details that will go further in much deeper in a three-dimensional way in third year, but definitely have to introduce to the concept and at a just a bi-surface level here in second year. We need audience research to be able to tell us exactly who is listening, when they're listening, why they're listening, and why they are not listening, especially as well, who they're busy tuning out to, from our radio station. And so the BRC took over. SAF was our old school numbers guys and girls, and their numbers were very. I'm not going to say inaccurate. That's unfair to say. There wasn't enough. There wasn't the correct resources to be able to get a good gauge as to like who was listening and how many people were listening. So what they would do is flood the numbers, right? But they would flood the numbers quite exponentially. And when the BRC came into action with dealing with our audience research, we found that a lot of the stations had a much more accurate number base, right? But the thing was that it was a lot less than what they had already been used to. And the thing is that with that came a whole lot of implications in terms of well, I mean, like directly our sales, you know, so you can't be selling at a certain cost price or rate card price if you do not have the matching numbers to be able to back that up. So that was a big thing as well. So in fact, for me, obviously, that was the biggest thing, and that kind of took a while for stations to reconstruct and then be able to, like, for example, one of the biggest stations that had a big impact in terms of their listenership dropping was KFM, and KFM had to slowly and surely build their numbers slowly back up, and that took a couple of years to get where they are right now. Okay, so let's look at the difference between qualitative and quantitative research. So our qualitative is our numbers, and our quantitative is us being able to sorry, qualitative is quality. So we're going to look into deeper understanding of why people feel the way that they do, and they listen to certain radio stations, they like certain features or whatever it may be, right? Why they don't listen again to certain radio stations, what they do in their daily life. Remember, radio is a choice, and it is part of our lifestyle that we include, versus quantitative, which is our numbers, right? Okay, so again, there, so for example, focus groups are a really great way to be able to sit down. We obviously pay people to sit down for a couple of hours and answer a bunch of questions for us, again, so that we can get more insight. You know, like, for example, our favorite songs in the radio stations, we do what we call AMTs, which I'll explore further in third year. So auditory music testing, and our quantitative is like how many, how often, you know, again, just being able to see how many people are listening, you know, at certain shows, certain times of the day, certain times of the week, and so on and so forth, right? So once again, quality is qualitative and quantity is our numbers. Okay. So, who is listening? There are common themes that appeal to all people, right? Everyone likes clean sheets. We all hate traffic and queuing, and we all get bored, right? So, why do we bring this up, or why is this slide relevant? Because we want to be able to understand that within, obviously, like listening to a radio station is like choosing a club, you know. So people, um, you know, I've said this before, and I used this example. It actually um, it describes kind of radio really well. Is like let's say we have a soccer club, right? And a soccer club can, you know, the members of the soccer club will be a range of people. Obviously, let's say soccer players, so professional and amateur, whatever it is. We can have. Sorry, I'm just getting some messages. I just want to check if it is one of you guys. Nope. Okay, so I can carry on now. Okay, so we're talking about this now, the soccer club, but then also we must think about, let's say, sponsors, people that have a personal investment within the game of football, right? We can also look at soccer moms, you know, like our Volvo driving soccer moms that support their kids. You know, we can look at the fans that are fanatical about sports, as soccer memorabilia. Obviously, soccer as like a definite and a permanent in their lifestyle pastime, right? There's so many people that we can, all these people in the soccer club will be able to talk to one another. Even little kids that are joining, like kind of like dinky soccer, will have things to say about soccer, you know. And so, what we look at our clubs in terms of who is listening to our station, and then obviously our each show, we look at people that like things that are we they have in common, right? Again, like here, we have a bunch of things that all of us, doesn't matter how different we are from one another. We like the following: we hate traffic, man. We hate queuing, and we all get absolutely bored, right? and of course, like clean sheets. I wasn't leaving that out just because like there was some alternative motive. Okay, all right. Okay, so as a class, like if we're to list 5 points that run across the entire class as decided upon to apply for you, there would be 5 songs that everyone likes. There would be 5 things that most importantly resonate within like your functioning or your current status in life, and 5 reasons why you would get up in the morning, and we'd find a bunch of them would be the same, right? If we explored and we spoke enough and we chat enough, question enough, and the right questions for the right people. So this is how we develop our focus groups, right? And we run our focus group stories where people succeed despite the odds, just to mention that that is something that people love, interesting topics that are going to appeal to the majority of audiences, definitely in everyone's life and everyone's time, if we have to look at things that we all have in common, is definitely obstacles and like mountains and are made out of molehills that we have to climb and definitely conquer. We start looking at content, which you understood a bit of an introductory concept in Radio One, right? So let's move on. Listener behavior has changed drastically, definitely over the past decade, where there's obviously in terms of the landscape, like like South Africa has changed dramatically, moving from the apartheid era, which and radio started in the 1920s. It was such a long, extremely long time to develop a kind of like a one minded approach, and then we obviously had the segregation, which was then a mandatory enforced by the government. And once apartheid broke, and we had kind of like a definite free media speech and spoken word. We saw from then up to now just a growing and much more diverse um, allowance of media and in terms of radio as well. The listeners as well, we have changed like a lot, especially now in the digital age where everything is like it needs to happen now. Everything we want, we can get it now. If there's information, we can get that and loads and loads and loads of it now. And so that has affected everybody's like concentration span. We also in our day we decide that we want to include. We are very selective about how much we want to include, and we include quite a lot in terms of stimulation as well. It actually says there multiple external stimuli, what we consider entertainment, information, and then just that kind of interactive way that we not only, let's say, use or partake in within our media, our sources and our platforms, but the way that we also interact with ourselves has completely changed. I'm saying also from person to person, completely. And you would know that just because of the digital space that has conquered, become a really golden age for it, has affected both very badly, and we have many pros, great things that have come from that as well. So if you don't engage as a listener, or you don't engage a listener as a radio jock, because this year again is about focusing on the programming side, so being on air, understanding news, etc., all that type of stuff. Like that's what I want to focus on: how to not lose a listener and how to create great radio. If you listen to radio now, which you should be listening to because it is what you're studying, you're going to find a lot in South Africa is mediocre. And that is an opinion that is shared by as a consensus. consensus, yeah, between the majority of South Africans, they're going to listen to a radio station and be like, okay, well, I'm just listening to it because, I have limited choice in terms of commercial stations. Kind of our trend pattern in which we listen to radio here in South Africa is one commercial, one PBS station. So our public broadcasting services like our Causies and our Mklobo Wenenes and etc. etc. And normally a community station falls in there because like they directly are chatting to you, because it's within the community, and there's so much that is particular to a certain community. So we normally choose about three radio stations to kind of switch and swap between. Most people just spend most their consumption on one of those three, and sometimes will switch and swap depending on their mood. As well as if there is a fourth, it's 10 to 1, a feature that people enjoy, or a particular specialty show that people enjoy to listen to, and they might switch only towards that. For example, like Metro FM Sundays is a reason to just switch on. Even if you're not a Metro listener but love, I mean, that is something that is like iconic within um, our landscape. I always use it because it's one of the oldest features, and on the radio landscape, and it's just one of the most successful as well. Super simple and just super cool, super Sundays. I want to know. Let's go to a brief there. Yeah. But anyway, okay. So, understanding your audience, teachers suggest that students, yes, absorb it in three ways, right? So we would want you to understand that a medium in general must be both like audibly stimulating, visually, and then we have tactile, which is kind of touching, right? Where so information, which is the basis, the mass basis, if not complete basis, because information can be entertaining and it can be educational and it can be interactive, whatever it is. Forms now the basis of how we decide, even as a radio station, to kind of like segment our the ways that we can get in touch with our audience and make them feel something, so that they become more connected to our product, right? Okay, and become more loyal. They stay there, right? So our goal is to entertain. We use the auditor to or the audio or the audible tool. So on air. So while we're doing radio, we use a website like our Facebook, our Instagram, whatever it may be, TikTok as well to be the visual, and then we find new ways to make it something that we can touch and see. For example, an activation, which is like a premeditated 3 week execution of a competition that may involve live events or whatever it is, so people can touch and feel the product in many different ways. It can also be just the way that a listener might win something and then get whatever it is. Let's say it's money, or it's a like it's an experience, so that they can go on holiday somewhere, they go to the Grammys or whatever it is. Like they'll be able to touch and feel what they know is provided by the radio station that they listen to. Okay, so let's look at understanding the audience. We want to be able to look at things that are fundamental to a person's lifestyle, their health and their safety, their heart, so their emotional, driven, their personal stories, their money, definitely, right? And their transformation, the way that they are transforming and changing day to day, week to week, year to year, or situation to situation. So external factors of our environment, force us to make certain changes or just automatically change, to adapt. So again, let's say that the most recent one is moving from a COVID world to a non-COVID world, which really, while COVID, there was a lot of people that suffered mentally from very new, I would say mental diseases, so depression and stress, like the way mania starts to, eat away at you, and it becomes something that really dictates the way that they see the world, the way that they interact with the world, the way that they do not want to be part of the world anymore, and like going into a non-COVID world, like gave a massive rise to mass anxiety and stress to people who had never, to people that have and are, like, for example, I am a depressive and a manic anxiety driven person, which I do take medication for. I, funny enough, didn't find like the COVID restrictions that effective, to my mental state, because like I already had a number of tools that I've been using for a very long time. So two and a bit decades now, knowing that you know, I know the difference between inflectual depression or inflectual situations, circumstances, and how a bunch of people just who never have obviously experienced it were really struggling. And again, coming out of that into a real, a normal quote unquote world was something that everyone was expecting, including myself and including you. That this is going to be just, it's just better, it's better, but it actually wasn't. There was a whole bunch of infrastructures that were set up during COVID that had and have a massive like ripple effect on. So, for example, like company infrastructures, the whole thing about being virtual, like right now. The way that we interacted with people completely changed. So for us to be in social settings makes us anxious, etc., etc. Understanding like where the audience is at in terms of transformation will have an effect on pocketbook, heart, and health. And so we want to be able to really look into what is making our audience tick, so that we can understand as a product, as any medium product. But I'm going to focus obviously on radio, because that's just what I love and what I'm here for and what you're here for. Like, so as radio, which is a real time, directly connective medium. Obviously, for me, I'd say it's the best one, because of those two specific factors. We want to be able to know how our audience is living their life day to day with like the things that I mentioned before, and immediately, completely just lock into that, and why it is that they're doing what they're doing. So, like research in radio is demographic variables. So obviously, skin color, like age, sex, whatever it may be, geographic, obviously where we live, behavioral variables, which are like why it is, again, why we are listening to a station, why we're not, why we are busy at, let's say, 10 past 10 in the morning, and not listening, or like there's a spike at 8 o'clock in the evening or on weekends, whatever it is. And then the psychographics, obviously, is when we delve deeper into really understanding, again, like why is it that we're seeing these numbers. Numbers do not help, they're just a stat. If they do not, if they or you do not push, like why is it and why are they the way they are, right? Okay. All right. So we live by the numbers and die by the numbers. When I got into commercial radio, I was 24, and that says only that I was young. Not that I didn't understand radio at all. That was the reason why I got into commercial radio. Got my primetime slot, which was super great. But I had a boss that immediately said to me, like, Chris, live by the numbers, die by the numbers. Like, it's all cool. Like, we understand growth or whatever it is. The truth of the matter, like, I mean, this is the correct way that any station should be operating. But because we have complete mania in our industry, because one, it is totally small, the competition is strong, and again, because of the way that South Africans consume radio is so flippant. In other words, like it's like we can be listening to one station and be like, ah, whatever, like um, we just won't listen anymore because one certain thing really just didn't sit with us well, or we just got bored really quickly and saw there was a bit of a trend when getting anything special out of the stations, switch off, whatever it is, that the stations react manically, right? And when they see a number drop, within their RAM, so obviously their figures that the BRC provides, then there's just this mania, numbers have a way of getting under your skin because you're thinking like, why on earth is like we're doing everything right, aren't we? Or we've made a completely terrible decision and we're only seeing it in the quarterly diaries that are obviously sent out, and so we get the rams and we get the figures back, and we're seeing the cause and effect of our terrible or great decisions, right? Um, let's try and talk about this statement as I'm doing right now from both positive and negative approaches. The thing is that look, numbers don't lie. That means that if there is a drop, like we need to say okay, but we need to know exactly, like station manager and the management team cannot be guessing, like especially at a commercial level period and at a PDS level period, right? Community, not because the thing is that stations are there's a very different infrastructure in terms of how obviously things are put out on air and what is decided, and how there's in South Africa, there's just I think 296 radio stations, community radio stations there, and so many of them do not have qualified managers that are doing their best. Most of them are doing their best, but just are trial and testing a lot of things that are shown within their limited, because community radio stations. That's my ESCOM, my bright light is coming on there. Yeah, so uh anyway, let's let's not get into that. Anyway, so the thing is that they are again just kind of like testing waters and finding that certain mismanagement and certain things that are not focusing on, because a lot of the community stations only have a station manager. They do not have subsequent managers that help them run departments or whatever it is, and they're doing the work on their own. I'm not giving excuses. I'm just saying that there are some factors that we really do have to consider as being valid, and why you know um, uh, they can't immediately approach every single problem or whatever it is that is causing their numbers to kind of like swing back and forth, right? But that's why most community stations do not make big changes. They kind of stay where they are. And then again, for commercial stations to make those changes, it's got to be very strategic, because like kind of brand identity is everything. Again, because of the small space that we work in, just for it in general. Okay, so all right. So there is the BRC. So why are they important? We'll obviously just explain why. Again, there's four diaries. So a diary is the result of finding enough people to listen to stations, and I think there might be an example of what the diary might look like, but there of people listening every day, saying what time they listen to what station, and there's a whole bunch of subsequent questions and whatever it is that they've got to fill stats, and that is obviously returned to the BRC. The BRC will then accumulate that and then decide, okay, cool, like these are the numbers that we're working with. They also flood the numbers, so they do not get, like, for example, was I think I could be mistaken. I've got them up somewhere here. Let's see if I've got them up already. Nope, I'll get them up in a moment. Actually, just let me somewhat just do that now. Uh, seconds, yeah. Uh, RC. I'm going to share the screen now when we get into a little bit more detail. But I just wanted to get the highest number so for Corsi. Okay, 7.5 million. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Okay, so yeah, we'll just get back to the lesson there. So so again, just the way that COVID had like COVID affected the research because we couldn't get people to take part in these diaries, and we couldn't do focus groups because obviously for the longest time, especially at stations, that they were very 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 closed off. No one would come in, no one would come out. Besides, I mean, hardly even their own DJs would come in and come out because they were doing their the shows from home, whatever it may be. And so that obviously affected the diaries for quite a long time. I think it was way over a year before we got some kind of summation or indication that the BRC was going to release a new diary, right? And so LSM versus SEM, just that LSM was the old way of, SEM is a reflection of how people spend their money, where LSM is how much people would earn. So the BRC also dropped the concept of LSM. Still, it's still there. It's in transition, but the SEMs are what we focus on because we want to know how people and how much of their money that they spend, and then we classify them in certain brackets to see, obviously again when they are filling out those details in those forms that we're knowing also because the BLC, well, the RAMs are not just it's for not just RAMs for radio. So we obviously have their visual television intake as well as what they buy and what they go and experience on a daily basis. So what movies or what products they buy from Pick and Pay or Spa or whatever it is. I don't know, whatever. Right. So the BLC will do a cumulative, and again for you to go to their site, to understand how much of a variation of research, processes that they do is advised. I would say so that that the BRC is not only about like radio figures. Okay. All right. So again, that is just something that you can read on as to how like COVID affected the BRC figures. I don't want to really go into that. It was just the main thing that I do want to point out is that you know that was very difficult for stations to measure like their rate card. So how much they would charge or propose to charge to clients. Clients were also, I remember, all businesses were in an unknown, well, maybe an unknown phase, right? So in risk management, we discuss known knowns, unknown knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns, right? So the factor of like they would know how much money they would have, but then the thing is they wouldn't know like what tomorrow or next week or the week after or the month after would bring because so many businesses closed, depending on what type of business it was. First, obviously, like again, we found that obviously restaurants, there were a bunch here in just the Pretoria area. So I was saying Pretoria, they even listed like the first 60 to just completely close. Ones that were not franchised and whatever it may be. What I want to get to is that COVID had a mass effect, a ripple effect on, let's say now, okay, well, that and I'm sitting with my own business now. I would like especially to keep it alive, knowing that so many businesses are going under and closing their doors. So do I spend money, revenue that I might or might not have tomorrow, like on let's say advertising on a community radio station, would be apt, okay? Or do I save that for something else? And can I maybe do some below the line marketing, so some flyers or whatever it is, or have people just standing on the side of the road showing like some signs or whatever it is. Many different ways to do, but below the line marketing that is effective. But again. the way that had affected just like station revenue, and then again, just in terms of numbers, like that was, I mean, we didn't even have to. We didn't even have to suspect what happened over COVID without even having to see the numbers that were available, because everyone was listening to radio, because we're like every day basically, or every week, there was something new that was popping up, especially when we were completely in lockdown, and we were not allowed to go outside except for our bread and our milk, whatever it is. And we also know the severity of different variants, and people are dying around us, and we're seeing the news that is completely causing mass fear, mass trauma. We're seeing, I remember watching, and I love Oprah. Who doesn't love Oprah? Maybe someone doesn't love Oprah, but they're completely alone on that. But how Oprah was focusing specifically on different aspects of. She immediately created this like mini series, and she would talk to reporters that were like in Italy and in Spain or whatever it is, where they would show like as the news would show, but then this is more investigative journalism, just how the journalists would explain how there would just be bodies and bodies and bodies wrapped up in black bags, whatever is, and buried wherever it is, because the contaminant of COVID, whatever, was again so unstable and so incredibly, you know um what's the word I'm looking for now, man? But like it would spread so easily. Anyway, my thing is that we wanted reliable sources. It was the golden age for fake news, to arise. So if COVID had lasted, let's say, about 3 months, we'd easily be able to tell between like opinion pieces and fake news, like proper fake news. Opinion pieces are considered fake news because they're written in such a manner that people, and at that point we had a lot of time to consume whatever it is that we want to read about, to get more information, so that we could also be able to talk amongst ourselves and amongst our family or whatever it is, or even on social media about something that was going on, and it lasted much longer, as you know, than that. And that was a big problem, man. That was a big problem, because it came to a point, and we still are in that now, where a lot of people just can't tell the difference between like fake news and actual real news, where they should know that a radio station and a TV station and like dependable newspapers, right? So either digital or even here in South Africa, we still are locked into our traditional newspapers, right? Like that's where the news is. That's our best bet for getting facts, all right, and not tabloids in any kind of way. Okay, anyway, so we knew we knew what was going on, but we also knew a lot more of what we couldn't understand to be, or wouldn't accept to be, just falsified news, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, so again, just a bit of let me just move my face there. So just understanding different aspects of how our figures are looked at. Like the hot running water from Giza. Washing machines, electric stoves. How many people use a computer? How many people have a DVD player? Like two cell phones in the house. So as I was saying to you, like the numbers that we have, that BOC conducts, includes lifestyle. Okay, and that is the biggest thing, to understand that the BOC is here to give us exactly that. Okay, so we see when you look at the detailed RAMs, which the detailed, obviously, well, RAM figures, whatever it is, and obviously the television and visual figures, and etc. etc. We'll see a number of different graphs that are given to us. So let's start at just like sums here. So the SEM depicts how South Africa lives based on what they have access to, and like in and near their homes. The SEM relies less on durables, and more on household structures. It's an improved approach to segmentation, right? Again, if you look at the SEM inputs, built-in kitchen sinks, types of toilets, the motor car that you have, your washing machine, the type of floor material. Like you can see that it's all the quality of what it is that we are spending our money and our financial income or whatever it is, in. Okay. And the demographics, obviously, again, are split up: population, area, language, province, education, work, etc. Okay. You don't have to know a lot more than just what you're seeing there, socioeconomic measurements, right? Okay. Because again, in third year, we go fully, deeply into understanding like the complete structure of that. Okay. Some points to consider: there's no crystal ball, so find out if the research that you require has performed before or has been performed before and by someone else. So if not, ask the right questions, compile the data, and then analyze and interpret the results in a manner that for me is no, okay. I was going to say it's the most important part. All steps are important parts because if you do not find the right people to get the right stats from, you won't be able to ask the right questions, and then you won't be able to again then obviously analyze correctly. When you are analyzing, anyone can analyze anything, but you analyze incorrectly. Like there's a lot of people that analyze the incorrect data, and they analyze to ask the wrong questions to get an incorrect output or result, right? And so we have to be very vigilant as to like how each step is done, and it's done correctly, because any one of those steps done incorrectly, or all those steps obviously done incorrectly, will yield information or results, because anything can yield results, right? But to get the correct results that we can depend on, that is more important than anything else, obviously, right? Okay. So don't get intimidated by the language of research, please. Like, I mean, it's just not something that, someone has to explain to you or just have to look up. Like, I always say this, like, there was that first day that you were trying to walk, like stand on two legs, was not a great day for you. None of us can remember that. But like but you've learned how to work, right? So everything that is new is going to be foreign and so somewhat difficult to accept within your own like mindset or whatever it is processing, right? So just understand that like these may be new terms and new terminologies, etc. But you've been introduced to it. You just have to go again, please, obviously, after every lesson, make your own notes, go through the textbook, please. Again, especially with the part timers, because we do distance learning in a way, right? Okay. I would say distance learning, like you're not solely on your own. I am here, but we are far away from one another, right? You have to do your reading. You have to do what you don't understand, and you have to ask those questions so that I can clear that up for you. And with maybe including your own research and stuff like that to bring it along to our live sessions, and then yeah, we can build you into like better media practitioners. Okay. All right, so let me get to the homework, please. Okay, so please for next week end, I'm going to see you for 3 hours virtually, and all this must be done. Okay, including the next lessons as well. Answer the following questions, and then find 5 other respondents. Email the answers. Please don't email the answers. Just have them ready with you, so that we can go through. So pretty much, I'm guessing we can go through everyone's because part timers are a small class. Okay. So, how many times a week you listen to radio? How long do you listen at a certain time? How many hours a week do you accumulatively consider being? So, let's say you spend 4.5 hours a week, or 7 hours a week, or 10 hours a week listening to radio. How often do you listen to a community station? How often do you change the station? And why not just tell me why? Your favorite format of a radio station. So last year you learned about format, CHR, adult contemporary, like alternative urban, urban contemporary, urban adult contemporary. There's many different ones that you can choose from. A lot more if we look worldwide. And where do you do the most of your radio listening? So obviously the literal like situation. So is it while you're doing homework, or is it while you're on a taxi, or like going home? Like, is it just at school? I'm not sure, wherever it is. And please ask, like, so do this one for yourself, but ask for other people, for other friends, to just answer those questions for you quickly, so that you can start understanding the concept of research. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop that share right there, and I'm gonna end the lesson, and we'll see you in lesson 2.